The sun was red, hanging low over the alien desert. A giant stone arena stood in the middle of the sand, filled with noise, fire, and flashing banners. Alien creatures of all kinds sat in rows, shouting and cheering. At the center stood a human. Man named Jack. Jack wore a torn uniform, stained with dust and blood. He had just helped the alien king win a terrible war. He fought not for glory but to survive. Now, the king had promised him a reward. Trumpets made of bone and metal sounded. Across the arena, the alien king stepped forward tall, with golden armor and sharp glowing eyes. He raised a hand, and the crowd became silent. "This man," the king said loudly, "has earned a gift from our royal house." 2 guards came out, dragging chains. Behind them were 2 alien women, one with silver skin and white hair. The other with glowing blue eyes and deep purple skin. They were dressed in fine robes, but their wrists and ankles were chained. The crowd cheered again. Louder this time, they laughed and shouted, "Pick one! Pick one!" The 2 women stood side by side, heads down, not looking at anyone. They didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't resist. They had given up long ago. The king turned to Jack. "Choose one, human," he said. "One of these royal pets shall be yours." Jack didn't move. He looked at the women for a long moment. The silver-skinned one's lip trembled slightly. The purple-skinned one's hands were shaking, just a little. The chains around their necks rattled in the wind. The crowd began to shout again, growing louder. "Pick the pretty one. Take the quiet one. Leave the other to rot." But Jack stepped forward, his voice calm. "I choose both." Suddenly, the arena went silent. The king's eyes narrowed, confused. Even the guards turned and looked at each other. The king stepped closer. "You cannot choose both," he said. "Only one reward is allowed." Jack kept his eyes on the 2 women. "I didn't fight for prizes," he said. "I fought because I had to." He pointed at the women. "These 2. They're not objects. They're people." Gasps echoed across the arena. Some laughed, others shouted in anger. The king raised a hand again, calming the noise. "You are a strange man," the king said slowly, "but I allow it." The crowd screamed again, some in rage, some in surprise, but the king added, "If you take both, you must also take their curse." Jack frowned. "What curse?" The king did not answer. He simply turned around and left the stage. The guards dropped the chains and stepped back. The 2 women looked up slowly, shocked. Their eyes met Jack's for the first time. Jack walked forward and knelt beside them. He touched the chain gently, unlocking it from the purple-skinned girl's wrist. She flinched, but didn't pull away. Then he did the same for the silver-skinned one. "You're free now," he whispered. They didn't speak. But tears rolled down both of their cheeks. The crowd continued to shout, confused and angry, but Jack didn't care. He helped them both to their feet. They were weak, shaking, but they stood beside him. Together, the 3 of them walked out of the arena. Not as prize and owner, but as 3 people with a long journey ahead, far above. Black clouds began to gather in the sky. Thunder rolled across the horizon. Something was watching, waiting. The curse had already begun. Jack's ship was small, old, and full of scratches from past battles. It floated quietly above the desert world as the engines warmed up inside. The 2 alien women sat in silence, one on each side of the room. Lyra, the silver-skinned woman, sat near the window, her white hair covering her eyes. Shay, the purple-skinned woman with glowing blue eyes, sat on the floor, her arms around her knees. Neither of them spoke, not to Jack and not to each other. Jack was at the controls, trying to keep the ship steady. The moment he had lifted off from the arena, angry messages from the planet began flooding his screen. Warnings, threats, orders to return the gifts. He ignored them all. He looked over his shoulder. then stood up and walked toward the two women. He placed a soft blanket on the floor beside Shay, then set down a bowl of fruit and clean water. Between them, you don't have to talk, Jack said quietly, but you can eat if you want to. Lyra didn't move. Shay stared at the bowl, but didn't touch it. Their eyes were full of fear. Not just fear of Jack, but fear of what might happen next. Jack sighed and sat down across from them, keeping distance. I don't want anything from you, he said. No service, no obedience. You're not prisoners here. Still, they said nothing. Only the soft hum of the ship filled the room. After a long time, Lyra finally spoke, barely a whisper. Why did you take both of us? Jack met her eyes, because no one else would. Shay looked up slowly, her voice bitter. You should have left us there. Jack didn't get angry. He nodded. Maybe, but I couldn't. Silence again. Then Lyra said, do you know what you've done? Jack raised an eyebrow. Freed two people. No, Lyra said, her voice trembling. You broke a rule that no one breaks. And now something is coming. Shay spoke again, her voice colder this time. They bound us with more than chains. We carry a blood curse placed by the royal court. If we are taken together, that curse becomes alive. Jack leaned forward, confused. A blood curse. Lyra nodded. We were enemies. Our people hate each other. The king made us slaves to mock both sides. The curse keeps the pain alive, Shay added. If we are too close for too long, the curse begins to feed. Jack stared at them. Then why did they offer you as a prize? To test you? Lyra said softly. No one was supposed to choose both. Now Jack understood. The reward was never about kindness. This was a trap, a curse disguised as a choice. Suddenly, alarms beeped from the control panel. Jack rushed to the front of the ship, tapping buttons. A red warning flashed. System malfunction, power drain detected. What now? He muttered. He checked the power cells. They were losing energy fast. The lights flickered, and the ship shook slightly, even though they were in space. He turned to the women. Is this part of the curse? Shay nodded. It starts with machines. Then it moves to people. Jack rubbed his forehead, thinking hard. He had faced aliens, monsters, and death, but never something like this. What can I do? He asked. How do we stop it? Lyra shook her head. No one has ever tried, Shay added. Most who choose kindness die before they find out. Jack looked at them seriously. Then we'll be the first to break it. Shay stood up slowly. Why do you care so much? You don't even know us, Jack answered without hesitation. I was once chained to not by metal, but by war. I know what it's like to have no one care if you live or die. No one saved me back then. But maybe I can save someone now. The ship shook again. Lights dimmed to almost darkness. The curse was growing stronger, but something else had changed for the first time. The two women looked at each other. Not with hate, not with fear, but with the smallest spark of trust. They weren't alone anymore, and neither was Jack. Jack's ship flew through deep space like a shadow running from the past. Behind them was the war-torn planet, the arena, the king, and the chains. But ahead, no one knew, inside the ship. The lights flickered every few minutes. Screens went dark and came back to life on their own. Strange sounds echoed through the hall's whispers. Footsteps, breathing, but no one else was on board. Jack worked at the control panel, trying to reroute the power. The ship's systems were failing. Slowly, like something inside was eating them. It wasn't normal. It was the curse. Lyra sat in the medical bay, her arms wrapped in a blanket. Her silver skin shimmered softly under the low light. She stared at the wall, but her mind was far away. Shay sat across from her, sharpening a small blade Jack had given her for safety. She didn't trust easily, But she was watching. She was learning. Jack walked in with 2 cups of warm liquid. "I found some spiced broth in the storage unit," he said, handing 1 cup to each of them. Shay took it slowly, still wary. Lyra hesitated, but took it too. "You should rest," Jack said, sitting beside them. "We'll reach the next starport in about a day." Shay shook her head. "You don't understand. This thing doesn't stop with distance," Lyra whispered. "It follows us." "I know," Jack replied. "But maybe we can find someone who understands how to stop it." Suddenly, the ship trembled, the lights turned blood red, and the engines roared without reason. Jack jumped to his feet and ran to the cockpit. Screens showed flashing errors. System override detected, life support failing. He slammed his fists on the panel. "Come on, hold together." Lyra and Shay followed him, their faces pale. Shay looked around. "This is just like before," she said, her voice cracking. "The others. They died like this." "What others?" Jack asked quickly. Lyra answered. "The ones who tried to help us before. They started seeing things. The ship turned against them." Shay said, "Doors locked, oxygen cut off." One by one, they vanished. Jack stared at them. "You've been through this before." They nodded. Jack stepped back, looking around the ship. "I won't let that happen again," he said. "Not to you." Not this time. He opened the storage bay and started pulling out gear manual controls. "Emergency packs, even old paper maps. We're going to fly this thing the old way. No AI, no autopilot," he said. Shay gave him a surprised look. "You'd do all that? Just for us?" Jack smiled, tired but calm. "You're not just us. You're you." "That's enough for me." The ship jolted again, this time harder. The walls groaned, and black smoke leaked from the vents. Then a strange sound filled the air, like a deep voice whispering in a language none of them understood. Lyra dropped her cup, her eyes wide. "It's starting," she said, her voice trembling. "The curse. It's speaking." Jack grabbed a breathing mask and handed them out, back to the engine room. "We need to shut down the central core." They moved fast through the hallway, the floor shaking under them as they passed a mirror. Shay suddenly stopped. "What?" she said, staring at the reflection. The mirror didn't show Jack or Lear, only her. Chained again, bleeding, screaming, she stumbled backward, falling. Lyra caught her, shaking her. "It's not real. It's the curse showing your fears." Jack turned and helped her up. "We don't run from this," he said. "We face it together." In the engine room, they found the main power core glowing bright red. The temperature was rising, and black veins of energy spread across the walls. Jack climbed up the side panel and began pulling wires by hand. Sparks flew, and the room filled with heat. Lyra and Shay watched him, sweat running down his face, his fingers bleeding. "Why are you doing this?" Lyra asked, voice breaking. "We're cursed. You'll die if you stay with us." Jack looked down at them, smiling. "Then we break the curse," he said, "because you are worth saving," with a final pull. The lights shut off completely. The room went black. Then silence, cold silence. Moments later, backup lights blinked on, soft and steady. The black veins were gone. The whispering stopped. For now, they had won. But the curse was not dead. It was only watching, waiting for the next move. And this time, it was personal. Asterisk. The ship drifted through empty space. Quiet now. The red alarms were gone, and the air was still. But Jack couldn't relax. He sat in the cockpit, staring at the stars, his hands still shaking. In the corner, Lyra was curled up in a blanket, her eyes half closed. Shay was awake, sharpening her knife again. Even though it was already sharp, they had made it through the first wave, but everyone could feel it. The curse was not finished. Jack hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw things, visions, shadows, whispers. things that didn't belong in the real world that night. While the ship floated on autopilot, Jack, finally, gave in and rested his head. At first, it was peaceful, but then he opened his eyes and found himself standing in the arena again. The sky was black, the crowd gone. Only the king stood there, smiling with glowing eyes. "You think kindness can stop ancient chains?" The king said, "You think love can undo what blood has sealed?" Jack tried to move, but couldn't. Chains wrapped around his feet, his hands, his neck. The king laughed as Lyra and Shay appeared in front of him, chained again, screaming. Then everything turned to fire. Jack woke up gasping, his body covered in sweat. His heart was beating fast. It wasn't just a dream. He rushed to the back of the ship. Lyra was sitting up, breathing hard. Shay was on the floor, shaking her hands. Over her ears, "You saw it too," Jack said quietly. They both nodded, afraid to speak. "The curse," Lyra said. "It's learning. It knows what we fear now. It's not just in the ship." Shay whispered, "It's in us." Jack didn't know what to do. He could fix machines, fight battles, survive in space, but this was deeper, darker, something older than war. Later that day, while checking the navigation logs, Jack noticed something strange. The ship had changed course without anyone touching the controls. It was now heading toward a dead planet, listed only as Zarian 4. No colonies, no signals. No life, just a dark red world forgotten by maps. "What is this place?" Jack muttered. Shay stepped closer, her face pale. "That's where it began," she said. Lyra's voice trembled. "The curse was made there." Jack blinked. "What do you mean? Why would the ship go there?" "Because it wants to be seen," Shay said softly. "It wants to finish what it started." Jack stared at the dark planet slowly growing in the ship's window. "Then we go," he said. "We end this." They landed near a broken temple half buried in red dust. The air was toxic, but the suits Jack had stored years ago still worked. Lyra and Shay held hands as they walked together behind him. The temple door was huge and carved with alien symbols, strange ones that seemed to move when you looked away. Jack touched the wall, and it slid open without sound. Inside, the walls were covered with ancient chains, some real, some drawn. At the center stood a stone table, and on it 2 sets of glowing cuffs. Lyra gasped. "Those are ours." From the arena, Shay stepped forward. This is where they were made. Where the king sealed the curse. Suddenly, the air went cold. A dark shape appeared in the corner of the room. Floating, cloaked in shadows, it spoke in a voice that echoed inside their minds. "You dare return." Jack stepped forward, fists clenched. "We're here to break the curse." The shadow laughed. "Love? Mercy? Weak human ideas. This curse was made with hate. It cannot be unmade by kindness." Jack didn't flinch. "Then I'll do what hasn't been done before," he said. "I'll carry it myself." The shadow paused. Lyra shouted, "No, you'll die." Shay grabbed Jack's arm. "You don't even know what that means." Jack looked at them, really looked. "You've suffered for years. I've only just begun." He stepped forward and touched the glowing cuffs on the stone. The moment he did, pain hit him like fire. He fell to his knees, screaming. Visions rushed into his head. Lyra's torture, Shay's chains, every whip, every scar. He felt all of it, but he didn't stop. He held the cuffs and whispered, "You're not alone anymore." The temple began to shake. The chains on the walls snapped and turned to dust. The shadows screamed and vanished. Jack collapsed, his body cold. Lyra and Shay ran to him, pulling off his mask. "Jack, Jack, wake up." His eyes opened slowly, weak but alive. The curse was broken, but not by strength. Not by magic, by choice. He chose their pain, and gave them something they had never been given before: hope. The ship drifted away from Zarian 4 slowly. Smoke still rose from the cursed temple behind them. The sky above the planet had turned from red to dark gray. Something evil had ended, but something unknown had also awakened. Inside the ship, Jack lay on a medical bed, still weak. His skin was pale, his body cold. He had taken the pain of the curse into himself, and now it was hurting him from the inside. Shay sat beside him, holding a wet cloth to his forehead. Lyra stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, worry in her eyes. He shouldn't have done that, Lyra said softly. Shay looked up, but he did. He chose it, she added. He chose us. Lyra walked to the control screen and checked their location. They were near an ancient roothold, forgotten and almost never used. Among the planets listed, one name blinked on the map: Memory's End, Forbidden Planet Lyra's. Eyes widened. I've heard of this place. It's where ancient minds go to rest, where truth becomes visible. Shay turned to her. Do you think it can help him? Lyra nodded slowly. It's our only hope. They changed course. Flying through cold space and strange nebula clouds, the ship felt different now, quiet. Almost peaceful, but Jack hadn't woken up. He murmured things in his sleep, names, screams, and sometimes their names too. After 2 days, the planet appeared. It was covered in green-blue light, with rivers that sparkled like glass. No cities, no lights. No towers, just ancient ruins and soft hills. The ship landed near a glowing path. Lyra and Shay carried Jack outside using a hoverbed. The air was warm, clean, and soft like a dream. As they walked deeper, strange stone statues watched from the trees, some with human faces, others with alien ones. Each statue was crying, frozen forever. In sadness, "What is this place?" Shay whispered. Lyra answered, "A place where every memory must be felt." Before it can be healed, they reached a wide lake with no ripples. In the center stood a white platform, glowing with gentle light. They placed Jack on it carefully. Suddenly, the light spread around them. Wind began to blow without sound. Then a voice came, not loud, but deep and warm. He carries pain that is not his. He chose sacrifice, but his soul is breaking. Do you wish to save him? Lyra stepped forward. Yes. Shay stepped beside her. We do, the voice replied. Then you must walk inside his memory and speak the words he has never heard. Before they could ask more, the ground glowed beneath their feet. The world spun, and suddenly, they were inside Jack's mind. They stood in a battlefield. Explosions in the sky, burning metal falling around. A younger Jack was crawling through smoke, trying to save a wounded soldier. Help me, he shouted in the memory, but no one came. The others had left him behind. He pulled the soldier into cover, crying, but the man died in his arms. Then came another memory. Jack was locked in a dark room, fists clenched, watching as his orders were ignored by cruel commanders. He had begged to save civilians, but they refused. He watched a village burn from the window. Helpless, Shay felt her chest ache. He's carried guilt all this time, she said. Lyra nodded. He saved us. Because no one ever saved him. One last memory came. Jack sat alone on a bed, staring at a broken photo. It showed a girl, his sister. Maybe she trusted me, and I let her die. He whispered in the memory, tears falling. I don't deserve peace. Shay and Lyra stepped forward. This time, the memory saw them. Jack looked up, confused. You're not real, he said. You're just voices in my head. Shay walked to him and touched his hand. No, she said gently. We're here. Lyra knelt beside him. You gave us hope, she said. Now let us give it back to you. Jack blinked slowly. Do you forgive me? He whispered. Shay smiled, her voice soft. We thank you. The sky above turned from gray to gold. The fire disappeared. The dark battlefield became a field of green grass. The pain faded. Suddenly, Jack woke up on the white platform, Lyra. And Shay beside him, Riel, alive and smiling. He looked around, confused. Did we win? Shay nodded. We walked through your darkness, Lyra added, and you let us in. The voice returned, the chain is broken. But your journey is not over. Jack stood up slowly, his strength returning, and for the first time since the arena, he smiled. The ship floated silently in orbit above the forbidden planet. Inside, Jack stood by the window, watching the soft blue glow of the world below. He had not spoken much since they left the healing platform, not because he was weak but because something inside him had changed. Lyra stood beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly in the low light. Shay sat nearby, quietly braiding her purple-black hair with fingers that still trembled slightly. The silence between them was not heavy, it was full of meaning. Jack finally broke it, his voice calm but unsure. I felt everything. All of your pain. All of your memories. He looked at them both. And now, I don't know how to carry it. Lyra looked at him, her voice soft. You don't have to carry it alone. Shay nodded. We were always two broken hearts. Now we are three. Jack gave a faint smile that doesn't sound like a happy story. Shay stood and stepped closer, her glowing blue eyes steady. No, she said. But it can be a true one later. In the small common room of the ship, they sat around a small table. Jack brought food, simple, warm, enough to feel human again. They ate slowly, as if sharing a quiet ritual. No chains, no orders, no fear. Just a man and two women, trying to learn how to live again as the meal ended. Shay placed her hand on the table, open, not asking, but offering. Jack looked at it, then slowly placed his hand over hers. A pause, then Lyra added hers on top. The three of them sat like that, hands stacked, hearts open, walls down, and something unspoken passed between them. It was not romance, not yet, but it was trust. And trust was more powerful than any spell. That night, as stars blinked outside, Jack couldn't sleep. He walked the ship's halls quietly, checking systems, even though they worked fine now. Memories still came, but they no longer screamed. They whispered now, asking to be understood. He passed the door to Shay's room then. Stopped. The door opened slowly. Shay stood there, fully awake. I couldn't sleep either, she said. Jack nodded. Same. She stepped aside, letting him in. The room was simple blankets, old books, and a drawing she had made of the three of them together. He pointed to it, surprised. You drew this? Shay looked away shyly. It helps to remember good things. They sat on the floor together, back against the wall. She looked at him with careful eyes. You risked your life for us, she said. Jack shrugged. It felt right. Shay smiled. You don't understand what that means to us. Back on my world, we were trained never to trust, never to hope. But then you walked into the arena and chose both of us. No one's ever chosen us before. Jack looked down, voice quiet. No one chose me either. They sat in silence again. Then Shay leaned her head gently on his shoulder. Not as a reward, not as a promise, but as a moment of peace. Jack didn't move. He just let her stay. Elsewhere, Lyra stood alone in the engine room. She watched the power lights blink in perfect rhythm. Her heart felt strange, warm, and confused. She had always believed her chains would never break, but now they had been replaced by something else. Not weakness, but care. She walked quietly to the common room and sat at the table, then began drawing something herself, a small starship, 3 figures inside and above them. Light instead of chains. The next morning, the 3 of them met at the deck. Jack looked at both women. We can go anywhere now. There's nothing stopping us. Shay raised her eyebrow. And where do you want to go? Jack laughed. I don't know. He turned to Lyra. What about you? She smiled gently. I want to go where I'm not property, Shay added. Where we're not reminders of someone else's cruelty? Jack nodded slowly. Then we make a new place. Just for us, he sat back in the pilot seat and powered up the engines. The stars ahead were countless, but this time they weren't running from something. They were flying toward something. Jack looked at Lyra and Shay one more time, not as rescued slaves, not as broken victims, but as companions. One heart, two lives, and now, finally, a future. A few weeks had passed since they left the forbidden planet. The stars no longer looked cold to Jack. They looked like open doors waiting to be explored. His ship, once broken and full of ghosts, now felt alive. Lyra had painted soft silver. Marks along the inner walls, symbols of her people, symbols of healing. Shay had filled the shelves with drawings, stories, and poems. Jack had repaired every wire, every bolt. But the real change wasn't in the ship. It was in them. The three no longer spoke in fear. They laughed sometimes, they argued like family, and when nights were quiet, they simply sat together. No chains, no orders, no past holding them down. But the galaxy hadn't forgotten them. News of Jack's choice in the arena had begun too. Spread whispers flew from starport to starport. A human who defied a king. Who freed not one slave, but two. Some called him a traitor. Others called him a fool. But there were many who called him something else, a symbol one day, while refueling on a neutral trade moon. Jack stepped into a quiet bar he didn't want. Trouble's just a hot drink and a place to sit. But when he walked in, silence followed. A group of alien traders looked up and stared. One of them stood, a tall female with steel-colored skin. You're the one from the arena, she said. Jack didn't answer. He wasn't sure what they wanted. Another alien stepped forward. This one, younger, my sister. She was taken like those two. You gave people like us hope. Jack blinked. Surprised, the tall woman nodded. We thought no one cared. But now, they talk about you in the camps. They say, maybe we can be free too. Jack lowered his head, unsure how to answer. He had never meant to become a legend. He had just made a choice, a human choice. When he returned to the ship, Lyra was waiting at the ramp. You were gone too long, she said, arms crossed. But smiling slightly, Jack grinned. I think people are watching now. Shay leaned out from the doorway. Good, she said. Let them watch. Soon after, they began receiving secret messages, encrypted signals from broken satellites and hidden relays, not from governments or armies, but from survivors, slaves, prisoners, exiles. They wanted to know. Is it true? Did someone finally stand up? Can we join you? Lyra, once afraid to speak in public, now helped right back. Shay used the ship systems to guide others to safe paths, and Jack. He became a silent leader, a light in the dark for people who had only known shadows. But one day, a royal fleet appeared on the edge of their map. It was the king's banner glowing gold and red. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to destroy what Jack had built inside the ship. Alarms rang. Shay read the scans. 7 warships, loaded with weapons. They tracked us down. Lyra looked at Jack, fear rising again. We can't fight that, she whispered. Jack looked at both of them calmly. Then we don't fight. We show them. He opened a direct broadcast to the fleet. No tricks, no weapons, just a simple message. This is Jack Holloway, he said. The man who chose both. Then he turned the screen toward Shay and Lyra. This is Lyra. This is Shay. They are free. They are not property, not slaves, not gifts from kings. He looked into the camera again. If you fire on us, you're not killing rebels. You're killing proof that people can live without chains. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the ships stopped. One by one, they turned away, disappearing into the stars. Shay gasped. They backed off. Lyra whispered. They're afraid of the truth. Jack smiled faintly. Good. From that day on, everything changed. New paths opened. New voices rose. The movement spread not with violence, but with hope, and at the center of it all was one man who walked into an arena and chose both. Not for power, not for glory, but because he looked into two broken souls and chose to believe they deserved more. That simple choice changed everything.